This tutorial will show you a very simple but effective technique to elevate a plaster carving. All you need is India ink, a paintbrush, and a finished sculpture. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an art tutorial. With your finished plaster carving, spray with a top coat outdoors in a well-ventilated area. You want to make sure to get in all the nooks and crannies because any area of plaster left uncovered, the India ink will not be able to wipe away and it will just stain it jet black. I'm using a Krylon glossy top coat, but you can find any brand that works for you. Just make sure it's safe to use on plaster. After this, you want to make sure that your sculpture dries completely, 24 hours overnight. Then, you are going to use India ink and water to transform a basic sculpture into a finished work of art. Plaster carving is actually really inexpensive and you don't need that many fancy tools to do it. It's one of my favorite 3D lessons, and if you've never tried it before, click the link to follow my tutorial. In a palette, I have India ink that I've watered down and a small brush that I'm going to test an area with first. Let's zoom in. You want to work in small areas because once the India ink dries, it's really hard to wipe away. And the whole concept here is you're watering down your India ink to control how dark or how light your areas are. So you add it on and you take a paper towel and or a wet paintbrush and you buff off any unwanted areas. Wipe on, wipe off. How much water you use is completely up to your style choice. I always recommend to use a more watered down version of India ink to start because you can always layer and layer, but once you kind of get that dark India ink and it settles, you really have a hard time. You might even have to sand it off if it dries. So I'm going to use the India ink to go in recessed areas to really amplify my shadows. And this sculpture is all about a bunch of skulls and skeletons kind of in this group. So it's going to enhance those textured and those carved details for each skull. The beauty of plaster is it looks beautiful, just pure white and shiny. So if you just want to leave it simple with a clear gloss, I think for many sculptures that looks awesome. You can also paint it with acrylic paint, and that's a really great solution as well. The surface treatment of your plaster really depends on your subject matter and your artistic goals for your finished product. I liked mine the way it was, but I really think just this kind of grotesque assembly of skulls would be amplified by some really dark crevices and some angry skeleton faces. Why not? This sculpture, one of my students, when they saw me finish it, said, "Are you okay?" and checked in on me because it is a little bit gory, but I thought of it more as like Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't always think of a skull or a skeleton as a bad thing or to represent death. Obviously, of course it does, but I also see it as kind of playful, campy, and who doesn't love Halloween? I like to work with two brushes here. The big one I'm just wiping away so it has a little bit of water on it and no ink, although the ink does get on it. Then a paper towel to kind of buff it away and a small brush to control the nooks and crannies and the textures I want the India ink to go into. You're going to see that your water is going to turn black very quickly, so depending on the size of your sculpture, I recommend changing out your water frequently unless you want your sculpture super dark. And again, that's all up to personal taste. How dark do you want it to go, and how overall light do you want to keep it? I'm going to speed things up a little bit since I'm repeating over and over the same technique that you've seen before, and keep in mind that India ink is super messy, like real messy. So be careful. You'll notice I have a paper underneath my workstation so I don't have a bigger mess than I need because it will stain your table, it will get under your fingernails, and it will definitely ruin your clothing. As you're working, be mindful of where your brush is, clean it as often as possible, get as many paper towels as you need, and if you happen to have a pair of gloves, that always comes in handy. I have classes of 39, so sorry, no gloves for my students unless they bring them in themselves. Another thing to keep in mind while working with a sculpture is that it's three-dimensional, and this sculpture is in the round or interesting from 360 degrees. So as I'm applying my India ink, I'm moving it around quite often to make sure that I'm paying attention to every single angle, every single texture, and every single nook and cranny. I'm going to keep going at double time, and I'm going to stop narrating this video for now until the end. Basically, you're going to watch me do the same thing over and over again, so if you have enough information, go forth and make art. I'm going to repeat my steps at my double time speed, and feel free to jump ahead and to find any area that you have more interest in. feel finished, almost at least, and it's very dark and twisty. I really like how dark I went with my shadows. I tend to be very heavy-handed in my artwork. I always kind of push the envelope a little bit with the lights and the darks, and I like how the black India ink really enhanced each of the skeleton faces. You could do this with watered down watercolor. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure that would work beautifully if you don't have India ink on hand. So here are some finished photographs of this from different angles. Definitely looks like a group of terrorized skeletons. Thank you so much for sticking around and making art with me and learning this very simple but effective sculpture finishing technique. If you're interested, find me on Instagram at thatartteacher_Machado to see what my students are up to in my classroom, and find my website, thatartteacher.com, for all of my free full-length lesson plans, rubrics, and student examples.